Afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar series. My name is Won Jung-byun, Team Lead for the Greening Education Partnership Secretariat within the section of Education for Sustainable Development here at UNESCO. So before we start our webinar, please note that this session is run in English, French, and Spanish. And you can find the interpretation options in the globe below your screen. So please go to the globe button to choose the language that you would prefer to listen to. Now, the second season of the UNESCO-UNFCCC webinar series on the road to COP28 is now coming to the end. This is the sixth and the last edition of the series. Of course, during the previous webinars from until now, we have explored how to ensure that all learning institutions from early childhood to adult education are climate ready and integrate a whole institution approach to education for sustainable development to transform their teaching and learning, school facilities and operations, governance and engagement with communities. At the previous webinar in October, as many of you may remember, we discussed the expectations and plans, as well as key issues and opportunities concerning greening schools that are coming up in the context of COP28 in Dubai, which took place from 30th of November and is now coming to a close. Throughout the 13 days of the event, which is now coming to an end, many stakeholders organized various sessions, a series of many events, highlighting how the important role of education is critical in getting every learner climate ready and to take climate actions. And this aspect has been in collaboration, particularly with the UAE Ministry of Education and together with UNESCO as the Secretariat of the Greening Education Partnership, that it has established the first historical greening education hub, as you can see on the screen, which designed around the 4 action pillars of the Greening Education Partnership: greening schools, greening curriculum, teacher training and education systems capacities, and greening communities. So as you can see on the photo, and those of you who were there on site, there were 4 corners of the hub featuring different good practice examples from the United Arab Emirates and also other partners globally. And this hub featured over 200 sessions organized to promote the concrete actions and solutions on how education is not only victim of climate change, but also a solution to climate action. And on the occasion of the Youth and Children and Education and Skills Day on the 8th of December, UNESCO, in partnership with the Ministry of Education of UAE and Greening Education Partnership, organized a high-level session focusing on youth-based actions to greening education. And this is now coming to a very particular moment because key stakeholders engaged in discussions to accelerate greening education across the world in order to secure political support and also to strengthen the global commitment on common agenda for education and climate change at COP28 and beyond. So now I am very happy to share that this political commitment was mobilized to the next level through the Climate and Education Declaration, which is now has been launched and has been endorsed by 41 member states. And this declaration of the common agenda for education and climate change is now shared on the screen and the chat for your information, as well as also the list of countries that have endorsed. I'm happy to share that this declaration was promoted by the members of the Greening Education Partnership, also together with the countries of the Global Partnership for Education, with the support of the United Kingdom as an advisory group member of the Greening Education Partnership and the host of COP26. So this declaration aimed to strengthen and renew the country commitments and actions at COP28 and beyond on the role of education in adapting and mitigating climate change and the need for more investment to accelerate greening education globally. So please refer to the link in the chat and also the various activities that we will be showcasing on the Greening Education Partnership website hosted at UNESCO website. Now, the high-level session was followed by 4 technical concurrent sessions on boosting of the objective of the Greening Education Partnership and accelerating actions. And members working on each pillar gathered around to discuss especially through the technical sessions on the 8th and also the working group meetings on the 9th of December. So you can also find the recordings of these sessions in the chat for your information for those of you who were not able to join us on those days. So this is a very, very exciting moment. And through all the achievements and discussions that had happened in Dubai, now today's webinar will be focused around a conversation on what is next step. What will be the post-COP28 agenda for greening schools? Where do we go from here? So we will look back at COP28 together with our key panelists and its key takeaways and achievements, but also discuss the ways forward on how we can promote greening schools and the role of the education overall in tackling climate change. So today's discussion will be focused around 2 guiding questions. First of all, what are the main achievements and takeaways on greening schools from COP28? And secondly, what are the next steps to translate these achievements and takeaways into action? So with these 2 critical questions, we would like to first engage with an intervention from the panelists, and then we will be following that with a Q&A moderated through and engaged with the inputs of the panelists. So before we begin this panel discussion, I would like to introduce you to the tool that we will be using during this session to engage everybody joining via Zoom online and also on YouTube. You can go to slido.com, and enter the code sharp 1212, so 1212 on slido.com as shown on the screen. Also, you can scan the QR code directly on your phone and get the link to the browser. And this tool will serve 2 purposes. First, to allow you to raise questions throughout the session, which will be addressed through the Q&A discussion towards the end of the session. And then on the second part, to engage directly on the inputs later in the webinar. So please log yourself in on the slido.com page. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing today's 3 panelists, who will be 4 panelists, in fact, who will be sharing their views on the experiences. First of all, we have Mr. Rossellini Soares, Secretary of Education of State of Pará, Brazil. State of Pará, Brazil will be the host of COP30 in 2025. So this is a great moment to talk about how the legacy and achievements of COP28 can be taken to the next level. Mr. Soares has been the Pará State Secretary of Education since January this year, and he's a lawyer and has a master's degree in education management assessment from Federal University of Juiz de Fora. And he was Minister of Education of Brazil from April to December 2018, and the Secretary of Basic Education between May 2016 to April 2018. He was State Secretary of Education of Sao Paulo and Amazonas as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Soares, for joining us today. The second panelist will be Mohamed Abdiweli Ahmed, Advocacy Officer and Co-Coordinator of the Pillar 1 on Green Schools of the Greening Education Partnership, who is based at the World Food Programme. Mohamed is an advocacy officer supporting particularly the School Meals Coalition Secretariat housed in the World Food Programme. And in this role, he supports the School Meals Coalition in positioning school meals agenda in key global events and processes and catalyzing policy and practice change at the country level. Mohamed also serves as one of the 3 co-coordinators of the Working Group 1 on Green Schools of the Greening Education Partnership. And we have a very special two speakers here today. First is Renata Tapia. Yeah, she is a Peruvian 10-year-old, fifth grade from Newton College student who is passionate and committed to taking action to improve the sustainability of her school and the planet Earth. And also her colleague from the same college, Newton College, is Samuel Yepes. He's an 11-year-old fifth grade student, and he's part of the student council for lower schools in the same school. And both Renata and Samuel study in Newton College, which is an international baccalaureate world school situated in Lima, Peru. So we are very happy to have both of you here today. And thank you all four panelists for joining us. So let us now start with the first question on what you think are the main achievements and takeaways of greening schools from COP28. So first, to reflect on this question together, I would like to invite everybody joining this session on Zoom and on YouTube. Please go to the slido.com and enter the event code 1212 and share your views on this question. You can also scan the QR code on the screen or to go to the link directly on the browser. So now, what are the key main achievements and takeaways on greening schools coming from COP28? Of course, we've been discussing through this webinar series about the key aspects of challenges and opportunities of defining what we need to do to get the greening school agenda on top of education's work, in particular around teaching and learning, school facilities operations, and also school governance, making decisions how we can be inclusive and participatory, and also engaging with communities so that the schools can be the hub of innovation and transformation towards sustainability. So now, yes, as you can see on the screen, yes, indeed, COP is not yet finished. It's coming to an end. But of course, we would like to already take stock of where this discussion is leading us towards. And here we can see, for example, the big words like greening curriculum, sustainability, awareness raising has been one of the most key achievements and takeaways from COP28. And also the declaration is mentioned as one of the key achievements. And awareness raising and enthusiasm about this agenda is also recognized here. So engaging political commitments, determination, and making increased attention on education, I think are coming also. And availability of funding opportunities, as well as comments about still much to be done, makes us to engage in this discussion with a realistic perspective. So thank you very much for those of you who are putting in your comments here. But now with this result, Mohammed, first of all, I would like to invite you to take the floor. As World Food Program is one of the co-coordinators of the Pillar 1 on greening schools of the Greening Education Partnership, could you share which are your views, which could be from your perspective, the main achievements and takeaways on greening schools from COP28? And what has been discussed in particular during the Working Group 1 meeting last Saturday? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juan. First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share a few reflections today on our COP28 engagement. In terms of what I had taken away from COP28 was the remarkable momentum behind the Greening Schools agenda. Working Group 1, as you know, now comprises 58 member states and 691 organizations, forming a very robust mini coalition within the broader Greening Education Partnership. So in a way, you could see this mini coalition strengthen, particularly at COP, within the wider partnership. And I think for me, it's just not the sheer membership of Working Group 1 on greening schools, but it's proactive engagement, both prior to and during COP28. As you know, the group has now been working for more than a year and a half now. At COP28, the working group came together in particular to discuss how to push the greening schools agenda forward. The group has a clear North Star, which is to work towards transforming at least 50% of learning institutions into green schools by 2030. And I think the objective of the working group is to devise concrete, practical, and scalable actions to help us achieve this goal. In fact, at COP28, the working group members expressed that the working group has really bolstered their work through its ability to engender collaboration between different members, improve learning and knowledge sharing, and inspire action from the experiences of other organizations, and this is where I think the power of coalitions comes in into action to catalyze change. The Greening Schools Working Group has been very active in that it has acted through discussion to not only legitimate ideas, but share opinions and perspectives and form a common view on solutions to address agreed upon problems or gaps. Looking at the achievements in particular, a milestone for the Greening Schools community was to address one of the main gaps in the greening schools space, which was the lack of a global standard on greening schools. And in response to this gap, the Green School Quality Standard was developed as a joint work item of Working Group 1. Before its development, I think there was no consensus global standard defining the essential technical benchmarks for a climate-ready green school across the 4 key areas, from teaching and learning to school facilities and operations, school governance, and community engagement. And so the Greening School Quality Standard was the community's first attempt to fill this gap, and it served as a foundational document for the community to convene together and also inform our shared understanding of what constitutes a green school. At COP, we launched the second consultation on the Green School Quality Standard, building on the success of the first consultation held from August to October this year. The consultation is open till January of this year, and the intent is to officially launch the Green School Quality Standard in July of 2024. This was an iterative process that reflects the working group's commitment to refining and enhancing the standard based on feedback from the group and wider JEP membership. And to summarize, I think at COP, we've seen a number of developments, a number of achievements. We've seen the Greening Schools community unite through engagement in the working group. We've seen them act through the work plan, particularly the joint work item on the Green School Quality Standard. And what we now need is for us to collectively deliver by seeing how we can deploy these tools at the country level all the way down to the school level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. You summarized very beautifully how this energy at COP28 was like, in particular in this greening education partnership working group meetings on green schools. And I really like the fact that you mentioned the North Star being greening 50% of world schools by 2030. And to do that, we were able to unite together at COP28 to take action in developing and reflecting on this draft of the Green School Quality Standard. And also now the next step would be to really deliver at country level. So thank you very much for that great summary of the discussions there. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Soares to the floor. And since Brazil joined the high-level session on Education Day and endorsed the declaration on the common agenda for education and climate change at COP28, and since the Para state in Brazil will be the hosting province of COP28, in your view, what have been your main actions at COP28 that we can build upon on the road to COP30 in Brazil in 2025? Over to you.
Gracias, Juan. Gracias a todos.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all. I would like to thank everyone joining us, in particular the panelists and Mohammed that gave a stellar presentation. Thank you very much, Mohammed. And I'm very curious to hear from the pupils who are with us today. We all believe that we need to give a voice to children, not just young people, but also to not just to young people, but also to children. They have taken part in many debates, and we will be creating a COP for youth, not just in 2025 with the contribution of young people and children, and this is very important. Children must also be at the table and must be part of decision-making. Therefore, I think that the main achievement of the COP is around people. It starts with people. I'm from the state of Para in the Amazonia, one of the biggest and most important places in the world as it relates to climate preservation. And for this reason, we have to talk about nature, and we have to talk about reforestation. And we also need to think about mines, and we can only do this with today's generation. It's not just about the future. Change is today, and change comes from young people, from children. And this is clear for us. And this message was very strong during the COP. Children have a voice, and we have the proof. We have Renata and Samuel who are present here with us today. And for us, it's very important here in Para. It continues being something fundamental for greening schools and for building green curriculum. We took a decision here that is to make environmental education for sustainability and for the climate mandatory for all ages, from 6 years of age right through school. It will be mandatory, regardless of the curriculum, not just as a way for cross-cutting education. It should be cross-cutting. It should be in mathematics, in philosophy, in all areas. But there must be a space to ensure that we can carry out this transformation. Something that was mentioned a lot during the COP, green jobs of the future. And so for me, this is something that we're seeking to do here. But we hope that in the Brazilian COP, we will be able to place young people and children at the heart of the decision-making process, and green education is transformation, is the most important transformation. We have the main actions from Paris that must be discussed in Brazil, but decisions must be made collectively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soares. That's a very, very strong word of commitment, and it's brilliant how you describe that COP30 will be the COP for youth and children. I think this is really how we transform our way of thinking, and in particular, it's enlightening to hear that in Paris State, the climate education and environmental education for sustainability is a mandatory for 6-year-olds and plus in a very interdisciplinary way. So thank you very much for this strong commitment that we can take from COP28 to COP30 in 2025. Now, as Mr. Soares has mentioned about youth and children, we are happy now to turn to Renata first. Renata, from your experience as a young student of 10-year-old, in your view, what activities of sustainable development took place in your school? And how did you feel about these activities and changes that were made from it? What did you learn from it? What were your impressions?
Throughout all the years that I studied in Newton College, there have been many activities where students have taken action to improve sustainability of both school and planet. Every year at the end of lower school, students work together in groups to take sustainable action based on the Sustainable Development Goals. and it's called exhibition. During this process of 14 weeks, students dive in their inquiry, including having lots of interviews with experts and lots of research to learn more about a worldwide problem that impacts us. There were many essential projects where kids became the experts, took action, and made a change. For example, in my group, we had made a recipe book using items that normally are thrown away so we can stop food waste. Additionally, all our school had been in an eco bricks competition. In this competition, students tried their best to recycle plastics and wrappers by putting them in the plastic bottles they recollected from home. This is an eco brick. With this, we built community gardens for elderly people at the small Peruvian coastal town of Chincha. In Gardens, we're the first Peruvian private school to consider Mother Earth as one of our teachers. We have developed lots of activities with our school gardens. For example, each fifth grade class had to take care of one garden with different purpose. In my class, we created a bee garden. It has lots of flowers so we can attract the bees and increase our biodiversity. This year, 4th and 5th grade students presented a lower school play to create awareness about the SDG 14 by teaching the precepts of ocean literacy. We learned how to appreciate and take care of the ocean. With the ticket sales, we donate it to an upper school student organization called Oceanica. Also, a couple of months ago, the 5th graders had made eco-mosaics as part of their art project. They had followed the engineering design process to create the eco-mosaics without affecting the planet in a negative way. All of these events that I mentioned, as many more, had made me a total change maker that improves sustainability of school, society, and environment.
Thank you very much, Renata. That was so beautiful and it's so inspiring, especially to hear that you've understood Mother Earth as your teacher. That's beautiful. Thank you very much, and also showing a little bit of what you have been doing in your hands. I think that really gave us a very clear picture of what kind of amazing things that you're doing. And I'd love to see that recipe book myself to learn more from your experiences. So thank you very much for that inspiring comment. So now, while we have the discussion, please, I just want to remind you that all the questions and comments can be put into the Slido Q&A page, as well as the Zoom Q&A function. So we'll touch on them as much as possible at the later part of the sessions. So now I invite you to go back to the Slido again and enter the event code 1212 and share your views on the second question. So what are the next steps to translate these achievements and takeaways from COP28 into action? We've just seen how, in the case of Renato's school, these amazing activities are going on, and how, from Mr. Soares, the climate education is becoming much more mandatory in schools across, and how globally we're trying to establish a common language on what it means to be a green school through the work of the Working Group 1 of the Greening Education Partnerships. So there's a lot of activities going on, and we've discussed and try to take these activities into the next level of conversation at COP28, including by mobilizing stronger political commitment around the declaration and high-level events, as well as discussing much more in detail what are the concrete actions that can be taken up in the 4 working groups of the Greening Education Partnership. But now, in translating these achievements to actions, I think everybody needs to come together to come up with new ideas and suggestions. So now a lot of inputs are coming in on the screen, as you can see. So expanding school climate program, we need a clear roadmap, planning to make sure that this is done. And also we need training of teachers. That seems to be the biggest call, that teacher education, teacher training, train teachers globally, school teacher training. Indeed, these are the main aspects that needs to be addressed in order for this to take place. So now looking at these examples, now I would like to go to our panel, back to, first of all, to our youth speaker, Samuel. So from youth perspective, as an 11-year-old, could you give us some ideas of what other activities you would like to have at your school? And what advice would you give to other schools, having done all these amazing work that Renata just shared? Samuel, over to you.
Okay. Some advice I would give for students and teachers to improve school sustainability is finding fun activities to engage students and want them to participate, because at the end, kids love to run, jump, and have fun. So if we can find a way to have all those amazing activities that students are going to want to participate in, at the same time with them learning something or doing something good for the planet, it would be a great option and help sustainability a lot. Also transforming everyday activities that we already do into sustainable is another good option. Like, for example, if you have art project, and it's good to recycle materials instead of buying new ones, because with those recycled materials, you're really just giving it a second use and making it an even better project and not using materials. And it is important to remember that kids can make a lot of change, and they have amazing ideas too, because at the end, it's our world too. If you believe in your students and allow them to make positive changes and listen to our ideas, maybe one of those ideas could change the world and make it an amazing place. Here in Newton College, we try to listen to every single student, because with one simple idea, it can make a big change that can even stop climate change, or maybe stop pollution and save the world. Also, teachers here try to really show how to be sustainable to every single student in different ways in every single subject. Because the more you know, when you're older, you're going to be able to make really big changes and show the smaller kids how to do those changes when they're older, and repeat that process. So at the end, everyone in the world will be sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. That's brilliant. And really transforming our everyday activities into sustainable ones. That's really the power. And indeed, young people are the owners of this world. So thank you very much for your brilliant input. And I love the fact that you're in your podcast studio like that, so that you can also engage with others with the stories coming from the school and beyond. So thank you very much, Samuel. Now, over to Mr. Suarez. So what do you envision as the next steps? You talked about how the Para State is trying to make sure that climate change education is mandatory to all learners, and how this change can be put together, especially with the voices of youth and children at COP30. So in your view, how do you envision the next steps to translate these achievements that we've seen at COP28 into action? And how can we ensure a prominent role of education at COP30 in Brazil in 2 years' time, and of course beyond? Over to you, Mr. Suarez.
Muchas gracias, Juan. Primero yo tengo que...
Thank you very much. I want to say, first of all, that Renata and Samuel are incredible. And they know what they're talking about very well. And all of us, we have to understand that children and youth today are the change to come, and they are the future. And I realize every day that I have to talk less and take up less space and give more space to the voices coming from our youth. We need to give our children and youth the opportunities to enable them to all be like Renata and Samuel. I think that should be an objective for all of us. I think both of them have given us great examples. Samuel has mentioned that education has to be linked to things that kids like and enjoy so that they can take ownership of them and really integrate that into the curricula. That's something very important to enact change. And this is what we're trying to do with the implementation of climate education here in the state of Pará. We have a vertical implementation. It's unique, I believe, to Brazil and the world, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, but it's very specific. The idea is to include that education for all students. But so a standalone subject for all students, and then there's of course a horizontal approach to make sure that it is integrated into every other subject matter. So we have both approaches, the vertical and the horizontal one. We need to give opportunities to children and youth to participate in the projects very actively, to engage. And here are students in the public education network each year participate in reforestation projects in the Amazon basin or in the Amazon rainforest. And this is something which is very practical, but also very symbolic. We have managed to plant more than 3 million trees in 2 years with all of these children who have participated. So that's quite an achievement, and it's beyond symbolic, of course. And looking at what's coming out of COP28, we believe that we need to give more examples, not only of what Pará is doing, the state of Pará is doing, but what works in other places in the world. How can we learn from best practices? I believe all of this is of great importance. And of course, gender is of great importance for sciences and, in fact, in every aspect and subject matter. I think that we need to address these things differently and better. We need to create specific spaces for youth to address these matters as well, because the gender perspective has to be included in all spaces and fora. And we want to create a sort of mock COP next year in December with our kids and youth so that they can be very ready for 2 years' time for the actual COP 30, so that they can start discussing amongst them the issues that are important to them, and so they can agree on what their priorities are and how they want to approach the COP. And we have here our 2 students from Peru. I'm talking about what's going on in Brazil, but I believe that children and youth have to be here in Belém in 2024, as I was saying, for the Youth COP, and so that in 2 years' time, in 2025, the COP 30 will have a real meaningful participation from youth and children, which we very much need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suarez. That's a brilliant suggestion, and I think a big invitation for all the youth and children across the world that you will be hosting on December 2024, the pre-COP event on youth to discuss really and to ensure that the youth and children's voices are embedded in COP 30. So that's excellent. And I also take from your comments about this horizontal and vertical approaches that you have in curriculum, and also the gender perspective and green jobs that you mentioned earlier, which should be also a key aspects that needs to be approached and developed further in the years to come ahead of COP 30. So thank you very much for this big invitation and also your comments. Now, lastly, I would like to invite Mohammed. Mohammed, please, could you tell us a little bit about your views on the next steps? You've talked about how exciting and passionate the discussions at the Working Group 1 discussions was like at Dubai. And how do we take this away to the next level into action, especially through the Greening Education Partnership? So Mohammed, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juan. I just wanted to first commend the inspiring actions of Renata and Samuel. And I echo what Mr. Roselli just mentioned around children being at the core of this. They are the change makers. In terms of how we translate these achievements and takeaways into actions, I think that's a really key question. One that we as Working Group 1 discussed at COP, particularly around how we move the Green School Quality Standard forward. And I think some of the questions we asked include how we can utilize and promote the adoption of this new tool, the Green School Quality Standard, and how we monitor efforts to green schools. I think, and I think we're collectively as a working group trying to answer these questions. Reflecting on these questions, an ongoing topic was around the issue of the efforts around coalition building. We need to there were conversations around the need to continue to invest in coalition building, particularly looking at bringing in new voices to tap into varied expertise, including voices of children and youth. I think that's important to state. Having diverse voices at the table can help to ensure that we are employing a truly interdisciplinary and multi-sectoral lens to how we approach the issue of greening schools. And I think in this area of greening schools, it's a clear area where cross-sectoral collaboration can happen. Just to give you an example, during our conversations at COP28, we discussed the need to have architects and engineers at the table to see how schools are designed and built to ensure that it's done in a climate-friendly manner. Renata and Samuel just now have shown us why it's important to have children and youth at the table. And it's the same in our area of school meals, chefs and caterers and catering organizations. I think if we have this diversity, it enables us to hear a variety of views and to speak to those that are actually delivering on the greening schools agenda on the ground. In addition, I think when it comes to the question of how we use products like the Green School Quality Standard, there was a shared recognition that there needs to be a heightened advocacy efforts to raise awareness on this topic, particularly among ministries of education. It was noted that some ministries of education are not aware of this standard. And I think this is an area where the working group can spearhead a collective advocacy campaign to shine a light on the standard and what it is to different actors, including ministries of education, schools, etc. And then as I reflect on this question, I think I recall conversations around how the working group could evolve to turn achievements into tangible actions. We noted at COP, there was a keen enthusiasm for advocacy, but also collective efforts around monitoring and evaluation of green schools. And I think this raises the important question, how can we effectively organize to deliver on these different interest areas? And one suggestion that was floated and requires deeper exploration was the idea of establishing communities of practice focused on these specific topics. These communities of practice, for example, a community of practice on advocacy, one on monitoring and evaluation, and within these communities of practice, you could actually generate ideas, craft proposals, and generate action from them. And just to conclude, I think another mechanism to move towards action is perhaps through developing a shared learning agenda that transforms information into action and helps inform our decision making as a group. I think we need to capture the insights and lessons along the way. What could be considered to be best practices? What are some of the successes that could be learned from? What are some of the failures that could be learned from? And in doing so, we'd be fostering a culture of learning and self-improvement along our way to reaching our 2030 target. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for those very insightful comments. Indeed, I think during the working group meetings, there were many key elements such as monitoring, cross-sectoral collaboration, and how we can take this forward in a much more systematic way that was discussed. So I think this next steps of creating these vast communities of practice to translate these ideas into action in country level is really the next step. So thank you very much for your insight. So now moving on to the question and answer session. Now we've collected a number of questions in the chats. So for those of you who have not yet had the chance to go, please go to the Q&A chats of the Zoom and also on the Slido to share your thoughts. But I would like to first pose to all questions, one question to all panelists. So starting possibly this time with Mr. Soares. So this one question goes to all panelists. So in your view, what is a green school? What does a green school mean to you? This is a very broad question, but Mr. Soares, if I can invite you first to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we don't have a definitive answer. We need to build the response to what that actually means because we do not have green schools yet. We have a process which is ongoing for many years, in fact, but we're still building our green schools. We're still greening our schools, but it goes through. But one key element is curricula. The curriculum has to be adapted constantly to practices such as those mentioned by Samuel. We need to make sure that we engage with youth and children to make sure that they are participating fully and that they are trying to find real solutions to real problems in their own communities. Renata gave us a very good example of something they're doing at their school, at Newton College. So a green school has to think about how it uses space and spaces it creates. We talk about climate a lot, but we don't talk about nature enough, I believe. And climate is the problem, but the solution has to do with how we are going to manage nature, our forests, how we're going to make sure that we clean our oceans or that we have clean oceans, that we stop the melting of glaciers, for example. That's all very important for us, of course. But we need to understand that solutions go through nature, and we need to link schools in a better way, in a more green way to nature. That's part of this. And teacher training as well is an important component as well. We will not be able to enact change if we're not helping teachers to enact that change. They, of course, teachers have their initial training when they come out of university, but that needs to keep going. That there needs to be an ongoing training, constant training of our teachers if we actually want to be able to adapt and enact all of this change we want to see. There are many good examples of things going on in different schools around the world, but I think that we right now do not have the answer of what a green school is. We are building it. We are reflecting on materials, curricula, training processes, and we're building all of that from the ground because we don't have a great example of an experience that is finished, that is already a green school that we can reproduce here. We're building it as we go. But we need to bear our objectives in mind and build with that. Looking towards that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, this is an evolving process because also what we understood from our recent survey among young people on what they want to see differently in climate change education, we understood that the idea of climate education and green schools have evolved. And now it's an evolving process to make sure, of course, there are these key elements of curriculum, space, teacher training, as you mentioned, but also the overall objective and the design of it has to be contextualized to the local specificities and interests, as well as reflecting the ambition and the demands of young people today. So indeed, I think this community of practice that we are building also through this webinar today is all about bringing those ideas together, sharing where we are and sharing the experiences so that we can move forward together. So thank you very much, Mr. Suarez. Now I would like to go to Samuel. Samuel, in your view, what is a green school to you and what does it mean to you?
For me, green school is a place not only that has like nature, like lots of plants, trees, but a school that does activities that help the environment, that help climate change, that stop pollution, like all to solve all these different problems. I think that is a green school, and I think that is very important because if schools were just like to learn, like what change is it gonna make? You're just gonna know things to make action when you're older. Why not start when you're young and when you learn it so you get a fresh understanding of this problem? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Yes, why do we need to wait? And schools becoming active, innovative places of creating new solutions. I think that's amazing. And that young people with fresh minds and ideas coming up with solutions, and definitely that would be our beacon of hope. As we try to go past the climate crisis. So thank you very much, Samuel. And now over to Mohammed. Would you like to take the question of what does a green school mean to you? Especially now, I mean, you have the two hats as a working group coordinator of the Greening Schools pillar, but also you work in Green School Coalition, School Meals Coalition that tries to make sure that school meals are healthy and sustainable at the same time. So in your view, in your vast areas of work around greening schools, what does a green school mean to you?
I think it's a very good question. I would tend to agree with Roselli that a green school is as mentioned, an evolving concept, and even within our space of school meals, this idea of planet-friendly school meals is an emerging area as well. So it's something that I think is it's learning as you go, so to speak. So essentially there will be new elements that come to play, but to me in its essence, I think a green school would be a school that has a planet-friendly ethos. So a school that considers planet-friendly practices in terms of its design, its construction, operation, curriculum, and governance. So looking at it from the how a school operates, but also how it promotes environmental stewardship amongst amongst learners, amongst teachers, and the broader school community.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I think that your comment resonates with those of Samuel and Mr. Suarez as well at the same time, that planet-friendly ethos of a school, that it becomes a source of solutions and actions. So thank you very much. And now finally going to Renata. Renata, in your view, you've shared your works around how you've been trying to promote sustainability in your classes. To you, what does a green school mean?
For me, a green school is like a school that promotes being sustainable to other schools, like doing a lots of actions and activities where, like Samuel said before, students like have fun so they can be involved in that action. And like these schools can make sustainable action like recycling, who brings most, I don't know, eco bricks, and with fun prizes, so kids also like to do it. Well, for me also our green school is like schools that teachers promote students to like take action, because I think that in other schools, but just in small cases, they don't let kids take action. And for me, that is like, why? Because students, as Suarez, I think you pronounce it, said, needs to take action because it is very important that kids like say their ideas, because sometimes even our ideas can be better than others' ideas. So I think our green school is a school that helps the environment and to have like a really modern world, but in a very sustainable way. So we cannot impact the planet in a negative way, and like future generations can live a normal and sustainable life too.
Thank you very much, Renata. Yes, indeed, we need to take action. And as the actions come from young people already, I think the adults need to step up their work as well. So I would like to now, we have a few minutes left before the ending, but just quickly, 30-second quick questions to all of you, I think individually, I guess. First to Mohammed and Mr. Suarez. One question would be how we've been talking about from education sector, how climate change can be included. But from your perspective, one question came up in the question and answer of what more can we do to ensure that education is integrated into the climate conversations. So given that you are the policymakers leading on this topic, could you share your perspective on this, please? Maybe this time, Mohammed, would you like to go first?
So the question is how education can
how education can be integrated into the climate conversations.
I see. I think that's a good question to I want to keep this short, but I think education, there are a lot of synergies amongst various sectors. There's the climate food nexus, climate food education nexus through the platform of school meals. And so I think education is a tool, and it's a sector where it could be leveraged to promote environmental stewardship amongst learners, to incorporate planet-friendly practices. If you take school meals, for example, incorporating both climate adaptation and mitigation measures, including clean cooking, but climate resilient crops into our school food baskets. So I think there's many ways and many policy levers that the education space has, including school meals, to spearhead climate action. But I think one of the most important is inspiring and teaching the young learners, children, and the youth about environmental stewardship.
Thank you very much. And same question to Mr. Suarez. So how can we've been talking about putting climate change into education, but now how can we ensure that education is reflected in the mainstream climate change discussions, including through the nationally determined contributions and others, which will be updated at COP30? So over to you.
Oh, excuse me. I had forgotten to turn on my microphone. I think there's another question that I would like to link to this question, if that's all right, Juan. Because here in the state of Pará, we are trying to teach youth to engage in advocacy campaigns. Because to enact this change through the generation represented by Renata, Samuel, and millions of other kids and youth in the world, they need to be prepared to change their own lives. For there to be a real change, we need to change our own lives. We are not only agents of change in others' realities, but we also need to change our own reality in our school, in our households, in our communities, and that is how we're going to change the world ultimately. And that's what I'm thinking about here, because when we talk about climate education environmental education. That has to encourage youth and children to occupy spaces, to raise their voices, to transform what is going on. And I think that that is what we can do with education. We need to make sure that education fosters the idea that voices or the voices and the understanding of children and youth and how they see and conceive the environment and our planet with their ability to think differently, we need to make sure that that is at the table. So that is why we need youth at the decision-making table. Adults are there and they're making a lot of mistakes. So if we really want to talk about the future, we need children and youth at the table to talk about what transformation is going to look at. And I think that that is how the education sphere can really be a part of the climate talks. Advocacy, of course, learning, but also transformation of the whole community.
Excellent.
And so I really hope to see Renata and Samuel in Brazil, in Belém, next year to talk about all of these matters and to tell us what they are doing themselves. And I think advocacy is very important, and it's very much linked to education. And it can, I really like this idea.
Mhm.
And we have
Thank you.
a secretary of our indigenous people here in the state of Pará. The indigenous population here is quite important, quite present, and they are also, through them, we
Thank
are
you.
working on changing our interhuman and intercommunity relations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those comments, and indeed an invitation to Renata and Samuel for the youth pre-COP event. So Renata, Samuel, one last quick question, very quickly, but just also to ask you anything you would like to share and tell to all of these people who are listening to you right now across the world. What is your one message that you would like to share with everybody? Maybe at this time, Renata first.
I think that the most important message that everyone should know is that, like, everyone in the world needs to take action. I know that there is people that says, but these people is already taking action, but this organization is already taking action. But they're just like, imagine an organization of billions of people in the world. So all of us, kids, adults, and everyone needs to start taking action, being more sustainable, recycling, and doing things that, like, will help to be more sustainable to our future communities. Because if we don't start taking action now, like, maybe the world will not be like good as for us in the future generations. So I think it is important that UNESCO, United Nations, every organization is doing events like this, so we can, like, tell messages to others, like, to start taking action, and to, like, tell to the teachers, directors of schools that there are plenty activities that everyone can do, kids, maybe upper school students, that will help the world. It can be donations, activities, and everything. Like, maybe you can plant a day to plant trees or something like that. So, like, kids, adults, teachers, everyone gets involved.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Renata. I think your message today is very strongly heard. Thank you for sharing this very clear message of action with everybody. So over to you, Samuel. What would be your last words that you want to say to everybody who are listening to you right now?
I think the most important thing I've said in this whole presentation is that kids should have the word and should be part of all these big ideas. Because, like, what if a kid has an idea to stop climate change? If you don't listen to him, there's still going to be climate change, and we could have had the possibility to have a great life, no climate change, no temperatures that we can't support. And, like, because at the end, it's the kids' world too. It's not only the adult. It's not the adults' world. It's also the kid. The kids are part of the world. It's not bad that adults have ideas, but I think kids should have should be in those important conversations for not only they can know what is happening, but also they can give ideas and solutions to all these problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Certainly for COP30 in Brazil, I think you have a standing invitation to join in this discussions to make a decision together. So thank you very much to all panelists for this amazing intervention today. Thank you, and big applause to all panelists. Thank you very much. So today is the last session of our second season of the UNESCO-UNFCCC webinar series on climate change education for social transformation on the road to COP28. And this series is also delivered as part of the Action for Climate Empowerment Hub, supported by the German regional government of North Rhine-Westphalia. So today's discussion will be published as a video recording, which will be made available on UNFCCC's ACE Hub and also UNESCO's webpage. And we'll be issuing a certificate for those of you who have attended at least half of the webinar series, so 3 out of 6 webinars. If you have attended and if you would like a certificate as we did last time, please make your request by completing this form or the link in the chat. And you can also scan the QR code on the screen to access this form. So we'll be receiving your requests for these certificates. And I would like to thank all the participants and speakers that have been part of with us throughout the series of 6 webinar series. As you can see on the slide here, all these second season of webinars have been a great success in terms of number of participants, and the recordings are now available and also used in different schools as teaching materials to invite further discussions following the interventions of the panelists and the questions raised. So this second season will be followed by a third season next year, focusing on greening teacher training and education systems capacities on the road to COP29, which will be hosted in Azerbaijan in Baku city. So we look forward to this amazing third journey with you next year, and more details will be shared soon on UNESCO and UNFCCC websites and newsletters in the coming months. So thank you to everybody who have been with us throughout this whole journey of 2023, and we wish you a very happy end of the year and a great day today. See you in 2024. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.